the story of a woman who's done it. Because interestingly, Savita, even research shows that if a girl has a relatable role model, like the probability of her pursuing her passion and her career increases by 70%. So that's like a huge jump in having all these women enter into the workforces and pursue their passions.
Hello and welcome to the Success with Savita podcast, where we share hot tips on how to do life and business without losing your mind. I'm your host, Savita Nanjappa, entrepreneur, high-achieving 9-to-5er turned transformational success coach, helping you create a wildly successful business. Come hang out with me and other fabulous humans like you every week for stories and chats packed with a healthy dose of tips, resources, how-tos, and real talk. Side effects may include a happier and more confident you with each passing day. Hi, and welcome to the Success with Savita podcast. Joining me today on the podcast is Nishtha Anand, my guest, who is an author of the recently just published book, Awakening the Rainmaker, A Guide to Gender Equality, which has been published by Bloomsbury, which is the global publishing giant of the Harry Potter series. A little bit about Nishtha before we dive into the interview, where she delves into the status of gender equality in India and also shares handy tips for not just individuals but for parents and for organizations on creating gender equality in the workplace. She is an author and a professional with close to a decade of experience in investment banking and strategy, having worked across India and Singapore. She's a Delhi University gold medalist and holds an MBA from IIFT, the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi. The book includes a collection of brilliant insights from some of India's most powerful women in business, CEOs, CMOs, entrepreneurs, investors, Padma Award-winning scientists, mathematicians, leading sports personalities, and digital influencers. The book focuses on requisites for a gender-neutral upbringing and women's assertive demeanor. It also defines corporate policies and outlines a framework to establish a gender-neutral ecosystem in organizations. To devise the framework, she spoke to a number of diversity experts from some of the Fortune 500 companies which are doing well in this domain. The book is a practical handbook on gender equality at the workplace and in life for individuals and organizations. Join me as we talk to her, not just about the book and gender equality, but also her process and how she approached the book writing process. Hi, and welcome to the Success with Savita podcast. Joining me today, my guest, Nishtha Anand. I'm very excited to bring you on because here are two things. One is, I think the book writing process is very challenging and it's something that I want to get to eventually. So congratulations on your book. And I love your topic. I think it's such a great topic and I'm looking forward to our chat today.
Thank you, Savita. Thank you so much. I'm equally excited to be on the show.
Yeah, welcome. So let's dive right in. I like to get right off the bat. Share with us your story so far and what was the genesis for your book, for you starting to write this book, the why.
Sure. So my book is called Awakening the Rainmaker, and it's on gender equality in life for individuals and organizations. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why the reason why my wiring is like that, but even as a kid, I've always been very I've always been very aware of gender equality and inclusion. Maybe it's to do with the fact that I grew up in a household which has been predominantly feminine because it's just me and my sister. And even as kids, we would notice some people telling our parents, oh, the family would have been complete had you had a son. Or even as a kid, I've always been very academically bright. Like I've been through and through a gold medalist. And people would, tell our parents, wow, she's so smart. She's like a son. And it would really confuse me that why is it that my achievements make me worthy of a son? Why am I not like a brilliant daughter? You know what I mean? Like even when I started my career in an industry which people swoon for, investment banking. There again, the moment I became financially independent, people were like, wow, she's just like a son. You're not missing anything out. So that itch was always there in me. And I could always see even in the most like highest of places. I'm an MBA, and the gender ratio was as bad as 1:10, even in the most premier of institutes. And when I started my career, I would see that there are not many women at senior positions, especially in investment banking. There's a term called Rainmaker. Even my title is motivated by that. So a Rainmaker is somebody in the banking industry, somebody who has a lot of clout, who is very confident, is handling a very meaty portfolio, controlling good P&L and stuff. And I would see there are not many women Rainmakers. And I switched two organizations after that. I have worked on transformation and strategy projects across Asia. The story was same everywhere. I would end up being more often than not the only woman in the boardroom. The other people, handling operational departments like an HR, legal operations and stuff like that. And that itch was always there. I'm like, wow, where are all the women? Like, where is that XX chromosome? Where is it missing? And then 3 years back, I was pregnant for the first time. My husband and I were very happy, of course. But then at the same time, I was very overwhelmed. And I decided, okay, let me do all the reading because I want to continue with my career uninterrupted of these personal milestones. And you'll be surprised, Savita, there is not much written from an Indian woman point of view because we are in a very peculiar situation. We have to tread parallelly with parents, in-laws, spouse. If you're working, then there is a whole lot of corporate stakeholders like your HR, leadership, your juniors, your peers, your boss. What will they think? And I said, boss, okay, I'm not going to wait till 60 years of age. I want to correct this now. And that's when the idea for this book came along, that I want to write something very practically for the Indian women only, because I'm not trying to make a revolution ki, everybody can leave their houses and just, try to be in the name of equality. No. In this book, I have tried to come up with very practical hacks to be able to enable women to continue with their careers uninterrupted of all these personal milestones of marriage, motherhood. And also the most important thing, which is often not said, but I want to make women come out of that frame of, multitasking divas all the time. Otherwise you won't be able to achieve if you have that mindset all the time. So this book also focuses on a very important aspect, the role of other people in ensuring gender equality, be it your organization, be it your family, and how a woman needs to assertively demand that support without shortchanging herself. Like, stop pressurizing yourself because of your gender. Okay. So that's the story of the book.
I mean, it's a great story, and I resonate with you because I again come from a family of 3 sisters, and everybody was, including my mother for a long time, and I'm sure she still will say that she wishes she had a son, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, we wish you had a son," and yeah, I resonate with that, and I think your book is what you're saying is it's a practical handbook for
right.
when they are transitioning and having all of these other personal milestones as well that is happening, so they don't have to give up on their career. And I think what you say about multitasking is so true. We try to do it all, and somehow you're like, you get I was listening to this podcast yesterday, and they said Daily Stoic, he was saying, don't try to be an A plus in some things versus being a B in getting a B grade in so many things. And I think that's something that we do wearing multiple hats. So, okay, so congratulations on your book, of course. So what I want to know is, when you were writing this book, your book has insights from leaders, personality influencers, all of them. What are 1-2 stories that you listen to that stand out for you during this process?
So yes, so that is actually a very important aspect of the book, because I wanted to be most practical as possible. And I also, because the lack of rainmakers that I faced, I wanted the next generation or even our younger generation to not face that. So you name a field, and I tried to bring forth the story of a woman who's done it. Because interestingly, Savita, even research shows that if a girl has a relatable role model, like the probability of her pursuing her passion and her career increases by 70%. So that's like a huge jump in having all these women enter into the workforces and pursue their passions. So for instance, I've interviewed Padma Shri winning scientists, world-renowned mathematicians, digital influencers, content creators, CEOs, of course, CMOs, entrepreneurs, investors, everybody. I've just tried to cover the whole gamut of awesome women out there. And each of their stories were very beautiful. Everyone had a very different thing to offer. But to highlight a few, I think one I would like to highlight is the story of Zia Modi. Now, she is the world renowned corporate lawyer, of course. And for a decade, she has been the most powerful woman in business in India as per the Fortune rankings. And she started her career at the age of in 80s. She started practicing law in the 80s, and she was very candid and open about all these limitations. Like she said, I was among the only two women in a courtroom, which meant that I was like an animal in a zoo. These were her words exactly. And people were noticing me, so I just couldn't afford to go wrong, which meant that if a male counsel was spending, let's say, 2 hours on a brief, I was spending 5 hours on it, because I just had to be correct, and I had to be smart. I couldn't afford to look stupid in front of people. So that's the kind of pressure she had back then. And on top of it, she has raised 3 daughters. And the same point, around delegation, this is what even she mentioned, that she was able to achieve all this because she was very practical in her approach. She relied a lot on her mother-in-law and her husband, who would work around their calendars to be with the girls, so that their upbringing is not compromised. So I think this is the most important takeaway, which now even I relate to as a new mother, and which through this even podcast I would like to tell all the women out there: start questioning the status quo. Just because you're in that Indian society and you've been brought up with that mindset that raising kids is totally your responsibility, no, it took two to create a baby, and it will take two to raise a baby. So start delegating, and stop being guilty about it. Zia has been able to achieve that position because she was practical around these things. She would always spend quality time with the kids, but she knew that somebody had to step in when she was busy in the court. And today her daughters are well to do, and they are well rounded people, and they are leading much fuller lives because they could see their mom doing it all, and they could see a marriage of equals at home. And not just this, the way Zia is now embodying this in her organization is just brilliant. AZB and Partners has among the best ratio of senior partners as women, which is a great thing to do. And she's very practical in terms of what women lawyers in her firm want. Like, for instance, she's like, I have very bespoke conversations with people. She's cognizant of the fact that diversity cannot be a one fits all kind of an approach. You cannot do that. So for instance, let's say if a particular senior partner requested her that the cabin next to mine can be converted into a little nursery for my kid, I can get my nanny so that I can keep an eye. She did that. She's like, as long as the firm is able to deliver on these supportive mechanisms, we do it, because there's no harm in supporting women through their these pockets when they need support in, so that then they are the long term committed and happy employees. Just imagine the kind of value they can create for the organization and for the country as a whole. So I think I found her to be the gold standard in equality, and very practical and very common sense things that she's been doing.
I think I love the story because you're saying it's not just like a buzzword, because diversity is now today a kind of a buzzword for a lot of organizations. It's also like that must do, tick mark checklist kind of thing that we do. We are also into diversity, so it's heartening to hear these stories as well. And I know, because I can think about how I wish I had the same support, because I actually had to be on bed rest when I was pregnant, when I was in my 6th month. And there was no option, right? I had to use all my leave, and then I quit after my baby delivered, because there wasn't any option of flexi working. But if I think now, today's pandemic world, we are all working online, and it wouldn't have, my work wasn't in such way I needed to be out and moving. So it's I can totally relate to the story. And I think it's amazing to know, when you do the book and when you read, you see people just on the outside, but you get to know so much deeper about what they do in their organization. So what have you observed, Nishtha, as gaps that we have today in organizations around the
Right.
gender neutral ecosystem, because like I said, it's a buzzword. So what, according to you, during your research, what have you observed are like these key gaps that we are not talking about or we must fix?
I think the most important gap in the corporate ecosystem. So first thing, Savita, first thing first, at least the intent is there. Like most
Sure.
organizations, you're right. It has become a buzzwords, and most organizations need, they feel that we need to be in the right and at least talk about it. So starting point is sorted, but you're right. The huge gap is between, that the first of all the policies and their implementation. So for instance, like the way you mentioned that you had to take a break during your pregnancy, and that now even there are many organizations who are having supportive policies even around these sort of things, but the problem is in the implementation bit of things. So for instance, you may have noticed even most recently it has been in the news as well, like paternity leave has become very popular. Many organizations are even introducing it in India. PNG, Diageo, to name a few, and even Indian firms like Zomato has also previously announced the paternity leave. But the problem is, and I did this survey also among the men in India, and I found that though this policy is there, but not many men are comfortable taking it. So this policy then would remain on paper only, right, at the end of the day. Because what if a man doesn't, if men don't avail of it. And the most important bit here is, Savita, this the gap between a woman and a man's career starts when they welcome a child into their family. And it's very important to break the caregiving model, which is extra dependent on women. And that can only happen when the moment the baby arrives, the man is also around, because only then the man would know the nitty-gritties of raising a kid. Because it's not just about breastfeeding, it's about so many other things which even a man can do. It's just that we don't question that status quo currently. So I think the gaping gap, the huge gap, is in the implementation of bit of things. And how do we correct this? I think the most important thing is you need to be very objective in looking at data. That's the only way to solve for this. So for instance, if a particular policy which is supporting diversity and inclusion has been introduced in any organization, you have to track every quarter how is it being implemented. Like for instance, if in your organization you knew that X number of men are having kids, you see what percentage of them are going for paternity leave. And if they're not, you need to have those bespoke conversations on what is the issue. The another gaping issue here is, Savita, the unconscious bias that still exists in among many people. At times people don't even know that they're operating from a position of bias. It's only when you discuss with them, you tell them that okay, maybe this decision you took out of bias, and they reflect on it, they come to know. So maybe if a man, even if they want to take a leave, maybe their manager is so that they feel कि नहीं हमारी promotion affect हो सकती है, या हमारा bonus affect हो सकता है, नहीं लेंगे. You know what I mean? Your boss needs to be okay at the end of the day. Even if that organizational policy is there, if your boss is not supportive, you may not end up availing it. So these two gaps need to be corrected. One is, of course, the implementation, track it through data. Like data, just that's the success mantra, honestly, in this. And secondly, checking for the unconscious biases. To that also, to correct that also, doing an organization-wide de-bias drive is very important. And that is, major chunk of my book, because I wanted to write something for corporate India. The second half of the book is actually focused on how organizations can be a better create a better gender neutral ecosystem for their employees. For that, I have defined this framework called the Power Punch framework, which talks about the role each influencer can play in making sure that only merit is a demographic, for determining how you perform on a job. You're not scared of things like gender, your marital status and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's execution. Now, I want to ask you on the flip side, what's according to you has been the progress that we made in this space? Because while it's easy to like brush it off as a buzzword, the fact is there's a lot of awareness around it. So where do you see the progress so far, let's say from, even 10 years ago?
Right. So the progress is, of course, greatly there. So first of all, even this intent is a progress, I would say,
Yes.
because 10 years back, even this intent was not there.
True.
So at least getting the intent right is good. Then, of course, even from the side of the government, there is great progress in terms of some policy support. For instance, changing the Maternity Benefit Act
True.
to increase the maternity leave from 3 months to 6 months is a great start, I feel. uh, of course, then Companies Act mandating that there has to be at least one woman on the board of directors. That is also a good starting point. This would ensure that at least a good quality of women are there across the corporate ladder for them to be able to join the boards of the companies. So
Yeah.
these are all good starting points, I would say. But then again, Savita, the progress is still, there's a lot more to be done in the field. Especially in India, our women labor force participation rate is distressingly low at 22%, which
Okay.
is like, less than half of the world's average. Countries like China are at 48%.
Wow.
So just imagine, like, it's like the state of affairs still need a lot of improvement. You look at our Nifty 50 companies, the top 50 companies in India, and there is only one woman CEO, just one.
Yeah.
So this, I mean, the road is really long to cover, honestly. And I do hope that this book is able to bring, that tangible change somewhere. I was reading this World Economic Forum's gender index report, and Savita, it would take close to 268 years to
Wow.
close the gap
Wow.
globally, to close the gap in economic participation and opportunity, which is like, women will take 268 years to be truly financially independent, to like say it in plain words.
Wow.
So the work, it's just huge amount of work we need to do. And I really feel that the starting with tracking execution is the main like the main nut in all of this. We really need to start tracking the execution and talking about it.
True.
The more you talk about it, the more conversations, the more stories you put out there, you're going to create like more and more women rainmakers, I would say, and this gap will surely improve.
Wow. The statistics that you're sharing is quite scary. You would think, oh, there's been a huge amount of progress. But
Right.
when you see the numbers, it still shows that it's far slower and far, the execution is far lower than what anyone would imagine it to be. So I do
Right.
want to ask you this. Do you think we judge women more harshly than the men? I think I know the answer, but I just want to ask you, have you found that to be true, factually true?
I think, yeah, the answer is like a resounding and a wholehearted yes on that. That is so. And it's not about just, other people judging. Women, like, they self-critique a lot too.
Obviously, yes.
That was the highlight when I say that we need to get out of that multitasking wala mindset that we have, because then we end up judging ourselves.
Yeah.
That I'm not performing well at home, I'm not performing well at work, and we burn out in the process. So a very simple thing I tell, and that's what I implement even for myself. I am like, if work and family can coexist for my husband, why can't it coexist for me?
True.
It should never be a question of I am choosing one over the other.
True.
So start treating your life ki parallel track pe, start accepting that fact ki isko parallel track par chalana hai, like we need to move it on a parallel track.
Yeah.
And then you make very practical decisions around it and learn to delegate. Stop judging yourself. Like, don't put too much pressure on yourself, because more than other people's judgment, I think it's our own which, breaks us more.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. Stay tuned as we take a quick break, and we'll see you on the other side of the show. Yep. Absolutely. I agree with you, because this is something that comes up when I'm coaching as well. The stark difference between men and women. Women are very hard on themselves, so they struggle with, not just the imposter syndrome, but also with the perfectionist kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of guilt because, they feel like they're not paying enough attention. As a mother, anyway, we all carry a ton of guilt when we are working. And it's very interesting when you say this, because until now in the podcast, until like when I started, I used to ask my guests, how do you manage work and home, right? Especially for the moms. And at some point I said, hey, you can't be asking this question, or because you never ask a guy, how do you manage home and work, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to start asking the guys as well and see what the answer is, because I need to be, careful when I ask questions, because I'm only asking the women this, and we never think to ask a guy, how do you manage, right? It's just not even like considered. So moving on, I want to ask you, for business owners and startups who are just starting to build, I know we're talking about corporate India, but who are starting to build up teams, what are some things they should keep in mind to get this gender neutral, like to get the diversity right from the start, and not like bring it in later when you realize, okay, we don't have enough gender diversity?
In fact, this is a very important question, and I have covered this in my book also. I interviewed two entrepreneurs. One is Lizzie Chapman of Zest Money. Yes. The company has been doing really well. She just won an Economic Times award as well. And the other is Naya Sagi of Baby Chakra, which just got acquired by MyGlam and is a $1 billion plus valuation company now. It just recently became a unicorn. And interestingly, the points that came from both their conversations was, the first thing as a startup to get right is, like on day one. So the first thing, whether you're an entrepreneur or a leader, first of all, be very honest with yourself whether diversity and inclusion is important for you. So I think getting that vision straight is very important, because even in the most well-meaning of organizations where there may be policies, even as a startup, let's say, if the leader does not give importance to diversity, it will not cascade down to the organization. Not much will happen in that organization. So I think first of all, as a leader or as an entrepreneur, analyze whether diversity and inclusion is important for you. That's the first step. Be honest in the answer. If the answer is yes, of course, you're sorted and you're going to make like actual tangible efforts towards it. But if the answer is no, here I think what is very important is reading up on the area, because when we talk about diversity, we often look at it as like a charity thing. It's like, karna hi hai, but not at all. Even in the book, I approach it with a very business angle. I'm like, it makes a lot of financial sense for an organization to invest into a diverse leadership brass, because companies can perform, Savita, as high as 46% higher on net profits if you have a more diverse set of leadership brass sitting in the organization. So that ought to motivate you, right? As an entrepreneur, if like the right thing to do doesn't motivate you, hardcore numbers will surely motivate you, that this is going to create a lot of value. So that is one. As an entrepreneur, get that sorted first. And I think the next step again here is making sure that the funnel of women, so basically, of course, hiring needs to be maintained at a decent ratio. Like for instance, Sodexo, another company that I closely interviewed for my book, and they are among the top ones when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So they did this study and they found out that a gender ratio in the range of where women are somewhere like up to 40-60%, anywhere in that range, the organization is bound to perform better on multiple parameters, be it finances, be it innovation, organizational safety, brand value, those sort of things. So make sure that you maintain this healthy ratio across the funnel, because most organizations, again, here the importance of data comes in. Many organizations say that we have a healthy diversity ratio, but if you go down into the numbers, you'll realize that all these women are at junior roles, or are in operational roles like that of front desk, receptionist, those sort of roles. Now, diversity doesn't mean having women only at junior roles. Diversity and inclusion needs to be looked at together, which means that you need to have women across the hierarchy. at the time of hiring junior roles, mid roles, senior roles. So
True.
when you're starting up an organization, hire right, of course, have a good balance of people who are coming into the organization.
Yeah.
Do these de-bias drives. It's very important to invest into organization-wide de-bias drives to ensure, like the way you said, even in interviews, it has been noticed that to a woman, you would ask questions like, okay, what are your family plans?
Mm.
And, if
Yeah.
you see that a woman is of a particular age, now
Yeah.
you may not know this consciously, but subconsciously you may reject her because you may think, Are, she may, plan a family soon, and
Yeah.
then maternity leave. So these are all subconscious things. So this de-bias drive, investing into de-bias drives is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, thirdly, maintaining a track of your high potential candidates,
True.
both men and women. Even women, you need to keep a track of them, and you need to see that whenever they need support, whether it's in terms of raising kids or even aging parents, which can be something which both
Yeah.
even a man and a woman could struggle with. So
Yes.
make sure that you have policies, like proper policies like sabbatical, work from home, to support them through their career journey.
Yeah.
Don't be myopic. To all the entrepreneurs out there, my most important key takeaway from these conversations was, don't be myopic in your view.
Mm.
Look at a person's career like a marathon. Like it's a career can span 30 to 40 years, right?
True. True.
And if you need support for maybe 1 or 2 years, one or 2 years here and there, be there for your employee,
Mm.
and you will see that how much value they can create for you.
True. Absolutely right. I love everything that you're sharing so much because
Thank
one, it's so on point. These are things I spent 17 years in the corporate world actually. So for me, I'm seeing all sides. So I've been a corporate, I worked in corporate. I run a business today, and in between, I had a phase when I was a homemaker. So I've like been in every
Wow.
shoe. So I feel like all of this is so on point and it's resonating with me so much. But I know that in your book, you also say, you talk about what parents must do to help create assertive women, right? Which is a very
Right.
important conversation, because where we struggle is we are either ends of the spectrum. And sometimes, and a lot of times, the balance, which is not aggressive, but not submissive, but to be able to be assertive is
Right.
really important. It's a very cultural thing as well. So what are some of your must-dos for parents? I'm asking very selfishly because I have a girl child as well, for bringing up assertive women.
Actually, that has been such an important point in my book. So when I started my book, I was like, okay, maybe I'll only focus on working women and corporate side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And when I dig deep into it, I'm like, wow, in India, about 85% women are at home. Like, they are stay-at-home moms, they are
Yeah.
homemakers. And as a species, we will not be respected if majority of us are not respected, right? So you may emancipate the 15% who are there in offices, but if the majority are not valuing their contributions,
Mm-hmm.
just imagine the kind of next generation we are going to raise.
Yeah.
A strong woman is going, or a strong man and a strong woman for that matter, both together will raise strong kids, be it a son or a daughter.
Yeah.
So that then became the starting point of my book. I'm like, no, all of this has to start from upbringing. We
True.
need to correct the chinks in upbringing. Now our generation, you and I, are like done with, we are more or less done, but
Mm-hmm.
we need to do a better job with our kids.
Yeah.
So the first step is, of course, realizing that there are chinks in the upbringing. And for that, again, like I said, that for a leader, they need to be honest with themselves. Similarly, as individuals, as parents, as fathers and mothers, we need to be, first of all, be honest with ourselves. Because even equality at home is also kind of a buzzword now, because everybody is like, okay, be it a son or a daughter, it's one and the same thing. But just close
Yeah.
your eyes and be honest with yourself, that who do you tell ki, okay, maybe who do you ask for help more often in the kitchen, for instance,
Yeah.
or tidying up the room, smaller things, tidying up the room, cleaning the house, or you're trying to say, okay, you need to be more friendly and more, like, just say, come across as somebody who's very nice and smiling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer to that is more to my daughter than my son, then maybe
Yeah.
you're not being very equal in your upbringing. Maybe it's more perfunctory. It
Yeah.
needs to be deeper. So I think the first thing is sorting this, again, realizing here your own biases. That's the first step. That are you maybe subconsciously biased somewhere?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that, of course, if it is no, then great. Means at least the starting point is sorted. You
Yeah.
are focusing on the same values while bringing up both your kids. But if the answer to that is yes, I think the first step is you pick up Awakening the Rainmaker, and you will get that mentality sorted
Okay. Okay.
on a lighter note.
Yes.
But if the answer to that is yes, then of course, just reading up, talking around with people, and like, being on the same page that no, maybe consciously, let me make a conscious effort to at least give equal opportunities to my kids when it comes to education and those things. And even I'm raising a daughter.
Okay.
And you're right, safety is something, again, I talk about equality,
Yeah.
not with a tinge of stupidity there. Like, for instance, be it even a son or a daughter, I would not be comfortable sending a kid of either gender, howsoever old they may be, at, let's say, midnight on the roads.
True.
Right? So you need to be cognizant of the practical realities around you. When I talk about equality, I'm talking about equality in opportunity. Like, give both your kids equal opportunities in learning. Like, if your daughter wants to pursue the STEM, like science, technology, engineering, medicine, or if she wants to go into karate, or if your son is interested into performance arts or cooking, any of these things, let them pursue their passions. Like, let them discover themselves. Don't define them, don't limit them by the gender template of society.
True.
But when it comes to matters of safety, of course, be practical.
Yeah.
So equality needs to be, you need to look at it from a very practical standpoint here.
True.
And by equality, I mean, give them the freedom to pursue whatever they want to do without any judgment. Give them a very good, be a sounding board for them, but don't put binders on them because of their gender. So that's what I propagate. Like, I propagate the gender neutral upbringing way. That is what I mean by that. And again, if you see, Savita, I'm being very practical with the Indian realities here.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not telling you, okay, let us just, it's okay, let of course, in an ideal world, that's how it should be. Like, anybody should be free to roam around at whatever time they want.
Yeah.
But till then, like, till the society is not mature enough,
Yeah.
you at least be practical in your standpoint.
True.
So yeah, that's the gender neutral upbringing bit of it.
Yeah. So great tips on that. And I want to now bring it back to you and the book writing process. So talk us through your book writing process, because I think it's kind of different for everyone. It is challenging, that is true. But then what was your process?
So the genesis of the book came, of course, the motivation was when I was pregnant. I thought that, so I had a motivation to write this book because I wanted to make things better for all the women out there, and especially for Indian women. I wanted to do something. And even when I started writing, even I didn't know that there's a difference between, like, on the surface, I knew, okay, self-publishing versus being, published by a publication house. There is a whole research that had to go into that. And I think to all the budding authors out there, it's very important, of course, to have a good manuscript in place. And especially when you're writing a non-fiction, the way I did, I think I wanted to make it as practical as possible, as relatable. So I included a lot of case studies. Now there are these, of course, and of course, all these women who are interviewed in the book, who are among the 50 most powerful from Forbes and Fortune. These are there, but there were around 100 more interactions that I had on a no names basis, which have been included in form of case studies in the book, which people from all the stratas, even in tier 2, tier 3 towns will relate to it. And will be able to pursue their passions in whatever way and form. So I think that was very important. So in the writing process, I think it's very important to be able to relate to what you're writing and to see that you're solving a problem. It is going to do some good to someone. That was the motivation to start with. Then secondly, then came that entire process of sending across proposals to the publication houses, because not many authors know that, but it's not like you start sending the whole manuscript to publication houses.
True.
There is a proper process of writing a proposal, talking about the synopsis of the book, giving a chapter outline, giving some sample excerpts from the book, which you think are the most punchy pieces. And then another important thing is you talk about the audience of the book. Like, as an author, show clarity that I wrote this, for whom did I write this? That I think gives a lot of clarity of thought even to the publisher, that wow, this author has put great effort into conceptualizing this whole work. So luckily for me, even when I was writing this book, there were many people who questioned me, why write a book? This is a topic often talked about, like, who will publish this book? But Savita, to my, I would say, like, good validation of the work that I have done, and this field needs so much talking about. My proposal was accepted by 3 large publication houses. And I finally chose to go ahead with Bloomsbury, because I think it was a little bit of a fan moment inside of me also, because I'm a great Harry Potter fan. So I'm like, wow, to be published by Bloomsbury, it's like a great yay moment for me, like a kid-like moment for me too. So for all the authors out there, clarity of thought on what you're writing, who's your audience, approaching the publishers with a very well thought out and a crisp proposal. And of course, once it gets selected, then for a moment, just celebrate your victory, and then again, get into the groove of, making sure that your work reaches more and more people, like I am doing with you.
Yes, but you've done such a great job. And I really liked your pitch, which is what I said when we started, right? So what's next for you, Nishtha?
So next is, of course, for these few months, I want to focus on this book. And because I genuinely believe that this can do a world of good. So as an author, I'm very invested in making sure that it reaches more and more people, and across, across societal levels. Like, you may be from a tier 2, tier 3 town, or you may be a like a stay-at-home mom or a working professional. I want this book to have maximum penetration. And I think somewhere beyond that, I want to further the work into diversity and inclusion field in India. Like, I want to be that practical thought leader. And I've already taken that next step. For instance, I'm already doing these transformation project with some organizations who are rightly focused on the D&I path. And I'm helping them to the gap that I mentioned, right, between policy and implementation. So I'm really helping them to close that gap. So one leader at a time and one organization at a time.
Awesome, but I love that. And I do want to ask you, as we come to the end of the interview, I have 2 more questions for you. One is, what's your mantra in life? Like, how do you keep going? And because it's not easy to hold down a job, be a parent, to have this. And I think book writing does take a certain amount of focus, commitment, time.
Right.
So what's your mantra for getting through everything?
So I think my mantra is, you just awaken the rainmaker in you and stop judging yourself and just delegate without guilt. That is the most important thing, and the most practical advice I can give to both men and women out there.
Okay. And my next question was going to be your advice to all the women, because we have a very large, almost actually, today I was just looking at the numbers, about 85% plus is mostly women who listen to our podcast. We do have 170K plus size as our audience, but to all the women who are listening to you speak right now, what's a piece of advice or an insight that you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think the most important piece of advice I would like to I would like them to do is start questioning things around you. Like, if you're not happy with certain things, like, stop taking things at face value. Unless you ask, things will not change. So start asking, and you'll be surprised by the kind of support you can get. And I'll just give you a small example here. I talked about baby chakra, right? Naya Sagi's venture. So she said we have something known as mom stars on their platform, on the baby chakra platform. So she said that there's this lady who was among our star performers and the star member of the community, and there was like a big CNBC shoot, and she had to come from her hometown to Mumbai for a shoot. Now this was a wow moment for her, but she's like, no, I can't come because it's a working day and I have a kid in the home. And these people, and it didn't even occur to her that she can ask her husband to take, a leave for that one day. And that's what the baby chakra team did. They're like, why don't you ask your husband? It's just one day, maybe he can manage those things around. And she did, and he agreed. So it's these easy things in life which can really make our lives easier. So even if you're like a stay-at-home mom, a housewife, a corporate woman, or somebody who's, because with the power of digital media, there are so many solopreneurs and digital entrepreneurs who are out there. So if you're struggling with something, please open up and ask for help, ask for support, and you'll surely get it. You'll be surprised by the kind of support you can get.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Ask for support. I feel like women don't ask enough, and that's great advice. Thank you so much for that. Now, before we let you go, please share with us how we can get your book. How do we connect with you? How do we find you?
So the book is already open for Kindle pre-orders, and the link is there in the description. Yeah, that would be great. Otherwise, it's going to hit the stores, be on Amazon and any other digital platform. Goes by Awakening the Rainmaker, 18 December onwards. And of course, you can follow me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook to get like good updates and daily dose of motivation. And I'm also very actively doing this Ask Me Anything sessions for women so that they can also get that easy dose of motivation and help. So reach out to me whenever you're struggling with something.
Sure. Thank you so much. For our audience, we are going to be dropping all the links with the episode notes, so look out for that. And of course, reach out to Nishtha if you have any questions, want to connect with her on all of the platforms. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Savita.
I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on your book. And I hope it takes off, and I hope many people really find value, learn from it. And I feel organizations should have it as a handbook in their company and apply it. More importantly, apply it. So thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Savita. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Same here. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode and you want more, you can go to the show notes on my website, which is successwithsavita.com/podcast. If you like what you've heard so far, I would be grateful to you if you could leave me a 5-star review, subscribe to this podcast, and share with a friend who may find this useful. You can also follow me on my Instagram @successwithsavita and DM me any questions you may have, and I will be happy to answer them for you. Until the next episode, believe in yourself and all the best to your success.